When Whiteness Chose Blackness. The Hidden Histories of White Men Who Passed for Power in Black America. Picture this. It's the 1940s. Harlem pulses with life. Smoke coils from black-owned cigars. The upright bass thumps like it's narrating a sermon, and a man with tightly coiled hair leans in the shadows, studying the room like a strategist. He isn't just here to hear the music. He's here to feel the pulse of a cultural empire most white men never touch. The crowd is electric. Billie Holiday's name is on the marquee, and the lines stretch down Lenox Avenue. He watches the money change hands, the crowds swell, and he knows there's something here, something America doesn't yet understand. Blackness, even in a country built to suppress it, has gravity. He's not black, not officially. But if the world believes he's just light enough to slip between the lines, maybe he won't correct them. Maybe he thinks it's time to step into something more profitable, something more alive. That man could have been Monty Kay, or Umberto Valentino, or Clarence King, because across decades and industries, there were white men who passed as black, not out of fear, but for access, for proximity, for opportunity. Monty Kay, passing for position in the business of black art. Monty Kay, a white Jewish man born in New York, didn't just manage jazz musicians, he positioned himself within the very heart of black American cultural life. His work with Thelonious Monk, Miles Davis, and Charlie Parker wasn't just managerial, it was strategic immersion. In a world where white executives were often distrusted and black performers were protective of their space, Monty Kay played a delicate, calculated game. His ambiguous looks and mannerisms led many to believe he was a high yellow black man, and he let them believe it. Because in the 1940s jazz scene, that ambiguity could open doors that whiteness couldn't. He married Diahann Carroll, a legendary black actress and singer, in 1956. Their relationship, groundbreaking in its time, was largely accepted in black artistic circles, because by then, Kay had passed just enough, and his position only strengthened. He would later become a major figure behind The Flip Wilson Show, the first successful network variety show hosted by a black man. Kay passed not for survival, but for social capital. He saw the raw, untapped cultural power of black artistry and embedded himself as a gatekeeper. Herb Jeffries, born Umberto Valentino, the cowboy who became black on purpose. Before there was Denzel in The Magnificent Seven or Idris Elba in Concrete Cowboy, there was Herb Jeffries, the first black singing cowboy in American cinema. But Jeffries wasn't black. He was born Umberto Alexander Valentino in Detroit in 1913. His mother was Irish. His father, who may have been Sicilian and French, was largely absent. As a child, Jeffries moved through a multicultural working-class community and began performing in his teens. His early identity was ambiguous, and in the South, ambiguity could be an advantage or a liability. In the 1930s, while touring with Earl Fatha Hines' jazz orchestra, Jeffries realized that black audiences loved cowboy films, but never saw themselves in them. Hollywood didn't cast black leads in westerns, so Jeffries made a bold decision. He would become what the studios would never cast. He darkened his skin with makeup. He adapted the tone of his speech, and he convinced a low-budget producer to back a black western with him as the lead. The result? Harlem on the Prairie, 1937, followed by Two Gun Man from Harlem, 1938, Harlem Rides the Range, 1939, and The Bronze Buckaroo, 1939. Jeffries rode into black cinematic history as a hero, a figure who combined charm, masculinity, and musical talent. His films became cultural landmarks in black communities that had long been denied positive representation. And though Jeffries would later claim he had distant African ancestry, the historical record is clear. He was a white man who stepped into blackness by choice and made a name there. Clarence King, the scientist who lived a double life as a black man. Decades earlier, another man made a similar choice, but not for fame. Clarence King, born in 1842 in Newport, Rhode Island, was a towering intellect of the Gilded Age. Yale-educated, celebrated in Washington, And known as one of the fathers of American geology, King had every privilege whiteness could offer. But at night, he was someone else. To his wife, Ada Copeland, he was James Todd, a black Pullman porter. They married, had 5 children, lived as husband and wife for 13 years. But Ada never knew his true identity. He chose to pass as black not to profit, but to love. Interracial marriage at the time was taboo, if not outright illegal, and so King constructed a lie. He cloaked himself in the identity of a black man to live a life that whiteness would never have permitted. Only on his deathbed in 1901 did he confess the truth. The era they chose to pass into, a nation built on racism. These men stepped into blackness voluntarily, but they did so in times when being black in America was an open invitation for brutality, erasure, and exclusion. Clarence King lived in a post-Civil War America that claimed to have abolished slavery, but left black people economically shackled. The Reconstruction Amendments may have passed on paper, but in practice, the country had simply evolved slavery into sharecropping, convict leasing, and racial terrorism. The rise of the Ku Klux Klan, black codes, and mob violence made daily life dangerous for free black people, especially black men. For King to live as one was more than a disguise. It was a life threaded through with contradictions and privilege he never had to surrender. Umberto Valentino, later known as Herb Jeffries, built his career during the 1930s, a time when Jim Crow was fully entrenched in American life. Public lynchings were not rare, and black Americans had been entirely shut out of Hollywood's leading roles. Even northern cities, though less overtly violent, had sundown policies, redlining, and segregated schools. To present himself as black was to flirt with social expulsion, but Jeffries reaped opportunity instead. He filled a space that black actors were denied. He passed for access. Monty Kay's time, the 1940s to 1960s, saw both the rise of black artistic achievement and the height of systemic containment. The Harlem Renaissance had opened doors creatively, but not institutionally. Black entertainers could headline at the Cotton Club, but not dine there. They could sign to major labels, but never own the masters. In that environment, Monty Kay moved through jazz's back rooms, allowing ambiguity to act as currency. He became a trusted figure in black culture because he understood its power, but also because he wasn't visibly white enough to trigger rejection. In each of these eras, black people were not simply oppressed, they were criminalized, denied property, education, dignity, and protection. And yet, in those very conditions, they built a culture so rich, so magnetic, so irresistible, that whiteness didn't just appropriate it, it sometimes tried to become it. Why they did it, and what that says about blackness in America. These stories force us to confront something America rarely admits. Even as black people were brutalized by law and custom, their culture, identity, and rhythm were coveted. White men like Kay, Jeffries, and King saw the value of blackness not just as an artistic expression, but as a social currency. Whether it was love, profit, or performance, they chose to step into a world others had to be born into, and many never survived. They passed not to escape racism, but to navigate within blackness at their own discretion. And that discretion is the difference. They always had a way out. Black Americans never did. Legal disclaimer. This article is intended for educational, informational, or entertainment purposes only. It includes historical research, narrative reconstruction, and cultural analysis based on public figures and documented archives. Scope News does not assert or verify private racial identities beyond available records. Reader discretion is advised, as some topics may be sensitive or emotionally challenging.